I mean, history is a kind of modern conception. You know, like the mythical civilizations had no conception of history as we conceive of it. They were conceiving of cycles, you know, or kind of spirals, you know. So Gebser theorized that there was going to be a movement at a kind of crisis of anxiety. There would be a movement from this mental rational consciousness structure into what he called the integral or aperspectival consciousness, which would be a different form of consciousness that kind of had a different relationship to time. Just to elaborate on that a little bit, he talked about how these previous forms, when they arose, each one kind of negated the one before. So the archaic or aboriginal form of time is like every day is the first day. I mean, there's a really good book by the Aboriginals called Voices of the First Day, and their whole thing was that you do rituals to just preserve reality in its perfect manifestation. They never thought there was a fall or a decline, you know, into an impure state. And then the magical cultures had this kind of instant, like magic happens like instantaneously, you know. That was sort of their time. And then the mythical cultures sort of elaborated these huge cyclical times. So the Hindus have these yugas, which last hundreds of thousands of years. The Mayans had these great cycles that were 5,000 years and more. The Egyptians had the precession of the equinox, which was a 26,000-year cycle, also linked to astronomical events. So that's their way of looking at it. And then we have this linear kind of spatialized model of time. Gebser's idea is that we became obsessed with matter and space in a way that nobody had been obsessed with it previously. And that we began to think that we could spatialize and materialize everything. So when we looked at time, we quantified and spatialized time in a way. So the whole way we think of time is that we think of there being, you know, amounts of time. You know, time runs out, you know, you don't have enough time, you're wasting time, you're spending time. We're constantly thinking of time as this quantity that somehow you can have enough of or not have enough of, or actually you can basically never have enough of it from this perspective. But that, for him, is a wrong way of looking at time. That's imposing this kind of three-dimensional model of space onto non-dimensional or multi-dimensional reality of time. This integral perspective would be an integration of all these previous relationships to time. You would know every minute, the same minute, that you were in that archaic reality where you were always at the first day, always at the creation point. You would also be in that magical, sort of instantaneous manifestation time, and you would also be in this mythical, cyclical time, and you would also be in the mental, rational, linear time. And he talked about these as being kind of veils that you would be able to look through. And to me, that feels, you know, very sort of copacetic with the Burning Man experience, which is this kind of manifestation of this archaic revival, and trying to get sort of back into contact with these kind of primordial forces, and learning how to be more present again, and not have this kind of insane time complex which dominates modern civilization, and is kind of this flaw in our conception of time is kind of embodied in our technologies and also in our calendar. In very serious ways. So that was Gebser's perspective. So basically, so I've been trying to integrate all these different models of what this dimensional shift is like, you know, why we're going through it, and it's not like I know the exact endpoint, but I think there's very significant information coming through about the Mayan calendar material. This was first began to be elaborated by Jose Arguelles, who wrote a book called The Mayan Factor, and a more recent book called Time in the Technosphere. I mean, a lot of people here probably know about, how many people here know about Terence McKenna and the time wave zero? Yeah. So basically, McKenna, when he was a kid in the early 70s, went down to the Amazon and took huge amounts of mushrooms with his brother. And basically, his brother had a sort of schizophrenic break, and McKenna became in communication with the mushroom intelligence and began to get this continual download from the mushroom intelligence. And the mushroom explained to him that the mushroom was a galactic intelligence that disseminated itself through the universe on spores that would be sent on meteorites. They would crash into planets. Then wherever mammals developed, the kind of central nervous system developed, it would create a symbiotic relationship with mammalian species as it evolved into intelligence. And the mushroom said that we were on the verge of making a fully conscious kind of symbiotic relationship with the mushroom intelligence that would lead us into the sort of mainstream echelons of advanced galactic civilizations. And it also gave him information about time, which was this whole vision of this kind of fractal or hyperdimensional time linked to the evolution of consciousness. So which he tried to sort of quantify in this time wave zero in terms of the acceleration of novelty and technology, leading to, and then when he went home and spent months and months working on it, and he had sort of software, he correlated it to the same date in December 2012 that the Mayans used, but he didn't know the Mayans had done this until later. That's what he said. And so Arguelles was somebody who went into studying this whole Mayan cosmology, because the archaeologists just say, they were just really into time because, it was a way to make their kings feel good, because the kings could then say, I'm connected to these events that were way in the past, But Arguelles actually looked at their use of time and their obsession with vast cycles of time, even like hundreds of millions or billions of years, and he felt that they were indicating that we're in this final cycle that had started around 3,100 BC and culminated in 2012. It was like a 5,100-year cycle that was moving us through linear history at this increasingly accelerated rate till we would enter into this higher level galactic sort of framework. And then these other people have come along and elaborated his ideas, one being John Major Jenkins, wrote a book called Galactic Alignments, and really looked carefully at how different Mayan sites revealed this material and information. And then I think really amazing and fascinating is this guy Carl Johan Kalaman, who was a Swedish biologist and cancer specialist who worked for the World Health Organization. And he has written a book called The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness, where basically he began to study this stuff, sort of taking Arguelles' ideas and elaborating on them, and then looked at the fact that the major Mayan pyramids, and there are 3 major cities, were all these 9-stage pyramids. And he ended up coming with up with this model that he thinks those pyramids indicate the evolution of consciousness on a 9-stage process, each one 20 times faster in linear time, going all the way back to the Big Bang 16 billion years ago and culminating in 2012. And each stage, it's a very amazing formulation, and I think very, very convincing. And it gets incredibly specific because these cycles, each one has kind of alternating sort of energy currents, where they're kind of light and dark energies that are related to certain Mayan gods. So, for instance, there was a last cycle, which was a 256-year cycle, which started around 1755, which seemed to be connected to the Industrial Revolution and the movement into, understanding how to work with power and material transformation. And the sort of positive energy current in that cycle culminated around between 1913 to 1931 or 32, which was, the time when Einstein's theories were being disseminated, when Cubism and Modernism and Dadaism were being disseminated, James Joyce and so on. And then the sort of negative energy culminated in the next phase, which was 1931 to 1951, roughly, I think that's about right, which was the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the atom bomb. So that's kind of this model that he's working on. And it works on all these different stages, even when it gets down to the billion of year stages. And, he's really done a lot of work on elaborating the model. Which means that in terms of the present stage we're in, which started, I think, in 1999, according to his model, 2007, November to November, would be kind of the crystallization of the new form of consciousness that perhaps we're all kind of working towards. And then 2008 would be the kind of destruction of the old form, which for Kalaman predicts would be a kind of global socioeconomic collapse. And to me, that's very, very resonant when you look at a lot of stuff that's going on right now. I mean, a lot of the peak oil predictions have 2008 as a very important year. We can see that this kind of global climate change is really accelerating right now. It's moved into all these accelerating feedback loops. So you have, things happening like what